Hello and welcome to this chess tips video. This is the second video in this three-part series. In each video I'll discuss 15 chess tips that should help you improve your chess. So let's dive in here. I did the first 15 in the first video, so we'll start with number 16 here. Let's see. Number 16 is play against the moves, not the person. So, sometimes, especially beginners, they might play differently depending on if they're playing a higher rated opponent or a lower rated opponent. If they're playing a lower rated opponent, they might hope that their opponent makes a mistake and play differently. But it's better to play against the moves. So while I'm discussing these tips, I'm going to go over a Bobby Fischer game here. So this was played in 1968. Let's see, looks like Croatia. So 1968 game. Bobby Fischer's rating at the time looks like it was 2780 according to this. And his opponent was 2355. So the game starts out with a king's gambit, which is e4, e5, and then f4. And, I don't think Bobby Fischer played this too much. Probably in normal tournaments, I don't think he played this too often. So I'm not sure if this was a simultaneous exhibition or what. But Fischer plays the king's gambit, giving up this pawn on the side for this central pawn. Now, sometimes you don't even get this pawn back. You just give up the pawn, and it helps you develop faster. So now Bobby Fischer will play against the moves, not the opponent. Now, you could play against them a little bit. Your choice of opening may be determined by if they're higher or lower rated. But in general, it's better to play against the moves and not your opponent. So number 17 is try to understand why you lost a game. So very important. Whenever you're playing, you should review your games if you can. But very important is to figure out where you went wrong, what mistake you made. So in this game, let's see how it progresses here. Fischer plays f4, so the gambit is accepted. Black captures this pawn, and Fischer develops his bishop. So, usually you develop the knights before bishops, and even here, Fischer invites his opponent to check with the queen, which is possible. But then the king could just slide over here to f1. You probably wouldn't want to block here with the g-pawn because this f-pawn could capture and kind of start causing problems here. But his opponent doesn't check with the queen, of course, because he's playing against Bobby Fischer. So we have this move, which is probably not so great anyway. All right, so what does Fischer do? He plays against the move and not his opponent. His opponent is lower rated than him. But how does he play against this move? Well, he just develops here, and the computer says this is the best move. Now, before I continue with these tips and the game here, we'll take a look at this game review. Fischer played 97.5% accuracy here with one brilliant move, compared to 85.5% for his opponent, which is still not bad. Fischer had 3 inaccuracies, but his opponent had 4 and 3 mistakes, which we'll see here. All right, I'm going to put the analysis on, and then just hit those moves from the beginning. So e4, e5, and f4. Now already the computer says it doesn't like this move. Black is ahead after capturing the pawn here. And then the recommended move is looks like knight to f3 to prevent the queen check. But Fischer plays this move, and already it says black is ahead by what, 0.4 here. So this move, which is bad, black is still ahead though, but now Fischer develops, and black holds this slight edge because he has the extra material. All right, back to these tips. Number 16 was play against the moves, or sorry, number 16 was play against the moves, not the person. And number 17 is try to understand why you lost a game. So we'll take a look at why Fischer's opponent lost this game here shortly. And number 18 is study videos, lessons, books. So just have a regular system of study. Playing chess, you can improve by playing chess regularly, of course, but you still need to do some studying, learn about strategy, end games, a little bit of opening study, but not too much. But there's different ways you can improve. Watch videos online, take lessons with a coach if you can, or a mentor, some higher rated player, that can give you good advice. And then, books, of course. There's many books out there that you can learn from. All right, so what happens next in this game? We have this move, c6, an inaccuracy, and now the game is about even. Maybe white is even jumping ahead here a little bit. So this move is played to, maybe push this pawn forward, but the computer says that this pawn should be pushed forward immediately. So the game continues with Fischer just developing here. And now the computer actually wants this queen move, attacking with the queen and bishop threatening a mate. But, Fischer doesn't play that because g6 could possibly be played, attacking the queen. I guess the knight could maybe block. But, if g6 is played, then what does the queen do? The queen would have to retreat, and reposition because it's under attack. All right, so now we have this move, d5. The best move in the position. Black is slightly ahead now, chasing the bishop here. But instead of letting this bishop be chased back, we have, excuse me. The bishop does get chased back. I was thinking that the pawn was going to capture and try and open up the center, but Fischer's king is still in the center, so he probably doesn't want to do that. So the game continues with black capturing, trying to open the center, and the computer says this is the best move. So now the pawn has been captured, the knight is under attack, so Fischer recaptures, of course. All right, before we continue with the game, let's look at chess tip number 19. Get a chess teacher. So I briefly mentioned that. Find a teacher, whether it's an actual coach, somebody that you pay, or, if you have a higher rated friend that has a lot more experience, they're higher rated, and they might be able to give you some tips and help you figure out what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right. But a chess teacher can be very helpful. All right, and number 20 is, play slower games. So, very important. A lot of people, especially younger players, they just want to play a bunch of bullet games and blitz games. Playing a high volume of games like that may help you try and memorize an opening, but you're going to make a lot of mistakes, and the chess is going to be, probably not at a very high level compared to your slower games. So it's good to play slower games. Take your time, think about your moves, and concentrate. So definitely good advice playing slower chess games, at least 15 minutes or 30 minutes or more. If you can play longer games, probably the longer the better, because you can really sit there and calculate and concentrate on your moves. All right, so what does Fischer's opponent do here? Knight to d5, and the computer doesn't like that. It says white is ahead now. So Fischer just develops his queen, lining up on black's king. So black blocks that, of course, with this bishop move and gets ready to castle. So now we have an attack on the knight with the c-pawn. So the knight retreats, and the computer says this is the best move, retreating here. And now we have d4. This pawn jumps to a great square, helping control the center of the board. And now Fischer's opponent castles. So Fischer finally, on what is this, move 11, finally gets that pawn back. So now material is even. He's developed his bishop. The only thing he has to do is figure out what to do with his king and his rooks. So back to these tips. So number 20 was play slower games. Number 21 is play in tournaments. So especially over the board tournaments if you can, because it's a whole different experience when you're just playing, random games online, or games with your friends compared to an actual tournament setting. Because you may be more nervous if you're not used to tournaments. Everything, the rules are strict. You have to follow the rules, and it's just a different environment. And it's just something that if you want to improve your chess, you probably should try and play in some regular tournaments just to get that experience. All right, so number 22 is build an opening repertoire. So I mentioned this in the previous video in the first 15 tips. You don't want to spend too much time on openings, but you do want to have some kind of opening repertoire where you know what your first move is going to be as white and your first move as black, depending on what white does. And then, after you know your first move, start learning your different responses in, depending on what your opponent does. So here, Fischer played the King's Gambit. So we know that Fischer likes to play e4, and then his opponent played e5. So if you're building up a chess opening repertoire, you would want to figure out, all right, if I play e4 first and my opponent plays e5, what do I want to do next? Do I want to develop my knight? Do I want to play the King's Gambit like this game here? So let's get back to this game here. We have knight to e6, attacking the bishop here and the pawn. So what does Fischer do here? He just retreats his bishop back, keeping his bishop pair, and reinforces this pawn in the center. So now we have this move here. So if we go back, it looks like that's the best move, bishop to b4, but white is still ahead even after this move. So now it looks like the computer recommends retreating the knight here and blocking, but the second best move is to move the king to f2, which is what Fischer does, although now the computer's saying this is an inaccuracy. But why not move the king? Now the rooks are connected. You can put these rooks wherever you need them. And let's see what Fischer's opponent does. So he finally develops another piece here. So Fischer has all four of his minor pieces and his queen developed, and his rooks are connected, so they're ready to be developed next. And his opponent only has 3 pieces developed here. So Fischer already has a lead in development. All right, so let me get back to these tips. So the last bit of advice was build an opening repertoire. So that'll make a difference. You'll have a little more confidence in your openings, and don't go too crazy on your openings. Pick one good white opening, one good response for black, and then slowly build on it. Maybe after each game, try and go one move further into your opening. Especially if you did something wrong, find what the best move was to play for next time you encounter that opening. All right, so number 23 is reduce blunders. So just cutting back on the number of blunders that you make, that'll make a huge difference, of course. You'll probably win more often if you're blundering less. Now, that may be easier said than done. I did a video previously. I think it was something like 30 tips to help prevent blunders. And there's a lot of advice out there to prevent blunders. So, the more you play, the less blunders you'll make. If you slowly build your opening repertoire and become familiar with your openings, you'll have less blunders in the opening. But slower games. If you play slower games and concentrate on your moves and ask yourself before you make the move, okay, what's going to happen once I move here? Is the piece safe? Is my king safe? That'll help you prevent making as many blunders. All right, so number 24 is learn middle game plans. So, that's a big part of studying chess, especially strategy. And once you know what openings you like to play, you might start to see how the middle games in those openings evolve and what plans and pawn structures develop as you play those openings. So that comes with experience as well. The more you play, the more you'll start learning the middle game plans that you should be playing for those openings. So like this King's Gambit, for example, a lot of times the F file can end up opening up, and you may be able to put a rook here on the F file and line it up here on the F pawn, and then if this bishop is also aimed up in this direction, pointed at the king, you can have some sort of attack possible in this King's Gambit. So the more you would play an opening, you'll start seeing these middle game plans. All right, so what happened next in this game? We just had knight to d7, and now Fischer pushes this pawn forward, which is interesting. The computer says that's an inaccuracy, that it would have been best to just develop the rook to the F file here. And why did Fischer play that move? Let's see here. Now the computer is saying that's the second best move by, it's very close to being the first move. So Fischer did a good job here. One thing it does is kind of block out this bishop from being able to retreat. It also maybe keeps the knight from being able to reposition, and but maybe I don't know if the knight would really want to go here. It does kind of constrain black's position here. It prevents the c-pawn from being able to move forward because Fischer is already pushed forward and gained space on the queen side. So his opponent responds with this knight move, and the computer says this is a great move, attacking this unprotected knight. So, what will Fischer do here? He just goes ahead and trades off here, and the queen recaptures, and now the queen is lined up on the king here. And another reason Fischer probably pushed this c-pawn is to activate his bishop. Now his bishop has an open diagonal lined up here towards the king, and black has his queen lined up on Fischer's king. So Fischer responds by moving that rook to the f file, lining it up on the queen, and maybe also giving the king a little escape hatch here, a way to get down here behind the pawns without blocking in this rook. Okay, before we finish out this game with Bobby Fischer, let's look at the next tips here. So 24 was learn middle game plans, and number 25 is analyze your mistakes. So very important to go over your games and figure out what your mistakes are. So in this game, we have another great move by Fischer's opponent, attacking the queen. Fischer doesn't want to lose time, so he just goes ahead and captures, giving up his bishop pair. But now he's able to attack the queen. Although the computer wants this centralization of the queen, of white's queen up here. So Fischer's opponent retreats his queen back, lining up on this pawn. So if the knight moves, the queen could capture with check and then cause problems, maybe trade off the queens. So Fischer retreats back to protect this pawn here, and his opponent attacks, attacking the rook on the f file. So Fischer ignores that, playing a brilliant move, ignoring the attack on his rook and jumping the knight up into black's position, aiming at the king side, this f-pawn along with the bishop and the rook. So this will cause problems. Now what does his opponent do? He makes a mistake here, capturing the rook. So number 25 was analyze your mistakes. So why, something you would do is try and figure out why this was a mistake. So let's take a look at why that's a mistake. Well, now Fischer plays the best move, capturing with this rook. So a rook that was doing nothing over here is activated along with the knight and bishop. Now the rook, they're all piling up on this f-pawn that's only protected by the king and this rook. So once you figure out why this is a bad move, why the exchange of the bishop for that rook was bad, well, it allows all these pieces to line up here, and then you want to figure out, well, okay, if I know that's a mistake, what should I have done? So if we go back here, instead of capturing the rook with the bishop, what would have been better? It looks like the best move, but white would still be ahead, is queen to d2 here, attacking the queen. So, I don't know, we could take a look at that. Queen to d2, we have an attack, and it looks like white's best option would be to just go ahead and capture. The bishop would recapture. And now, let's see, rook to f3. So that's interesting that this move is so much better. And now it looks like the best option is to retreat back here. And then you would have a capture, pawn captures, creating an isolated weak pawn here. Although white has, a backwards pawn. And now, interestingly enough, instead of doubling the rooks up and probably trading off material, the computer recommends this move, attacking over here. And then it looks like b6 is recommended, but now the knight can capture here. This pawn could capture. The queen side's under attack. Black would be a little bit better off than what happened in the game, but still behind. All right, so back to what happened. We had a capture of the rook. Fischer's other rook recaptures. And now the bishop moves here. The computer says this is best and creates a battery with queen and bishop. Maybe threatening to check the king here. So Fischer moves his rook up to prevent this check by the bishop. And now we have rook at a to d8, another mistake. And now it has jumped to plus 5.5 for white. So we'll finish this out after I go over a couple more of these chess tips. So analyze your mistakes. That was number 25. Number 26 is continually improve and evolve your chess. So you always want to try and slowly make improvements in your chess game, of course, to get better. But you want to constantly be learning. So there's so much to learn in chess that, you could learn something new every day, probably for the rest of your life, studying chess. So, as you learn things, your game will evolve. You'll want to slowly build on what you learn, incorporate it into your games, and slowly try and use what you learn to win. All right, so what was that? Number 26. So number 27 is try to understand the ideas behind your opponent's moves. So, don't get tunnel vision just worrying about what your moves are, which, we could see an example of that here. So black is just focusing on trying to get some attack going down here, and maybe he's not paying enough attention to what Fischer is doing. So he just moves his rook over here, a mistake, a losing, game losing mistake, attacking this pawn which is unprotected. So instead, what should he have done? Looks like the best move is king to h8, which is interesting, I guess. And that doesn't look too good because the knight is going to jump up here, forking the king and the queen. The rook would have to give itself up for the knight. And then, let's see, the bishop could capture. It's just going to be a mess. So already it looks like black is losing if king to h8 is your best move. So try to understand what the opponent is doing. So what did Fischer do last? Well, he moved this up here. Of course, that's to prevent a check of the king and then maybe pick this pawn off and attack the knight. And now, this move is played. So what does Fischer do next? Well, he starts his attack. We have a bishop, a knight, a rook. Everything's lining up here on the king side. Fischer starts attacking, capturing the f-pawn. So the best response, of course, is the rook captures. But now the rook is pinned by this bishop to the king. So now we have queen to e7. And Fischer's opponent resigns here. So we'll take a look at this and figure out why he resigned. You should be able to figure it out probably. But everything is lining up on this king, and we'll see how the game could have ended. All right, so 27 was try to understand the ideas behind your opponent's moves. If you ask yourself, why did my opponent move there? Or what is he trying to do? That could help you discover an attack that your opponent is building up against you. Maybe you overlooked something and now you'll be able to see, I better play defense here instead of offense. All right, so number 28 is always look for weaknesses. So before you make a move, you should ask yourself, now, when I say look for weaknesses, that's not only your opponent's weaknesses, but yours as well. Before you make a move, ask yourself, is my king safe? Can my king be checked? What should I do? If my king can come under attack, maybe I need to go ahead and just find a safe haven for my king, put it somewhere where it's protected and defended. But if your king's safe, what about your pieces? So each move, before you move, ask yourself if your king is safe, your pieces are safe, and then your pawns. And that'll help you avoid unnecessary blunders of just giving up a piece or letting somebody get an attack on your king. And another reason to play slower games, because it's harder to do all that in a blitz game. So after you have made sure that there aren't weaknesses on your side of the board, then you can look for your opponent's weaknesses. Look at their king first. Do you have an attack on their king? And if so, is it a checkmating attack? Or will it harass the king so badly that you'll win material? But if their king is safe, then once again, look at the pieces and see maybe they have a piece that's just, that they blundered away and you can capture a piece for free. And then, pawns as well. Sometimes your opponent will just give you pawns. Now, double check to make sure, it's not some type of gambit where you're going to get in trouble after you accept the pawn. But if you can't see anything wrong, maybe they just blundered and made a mistake, and you can get some free material. All right. Number 29 is play waiting moves. So this is an interesting piece of advice to help you improve your chess. Sometimes you'll have games of chess where things are just not tactical at all. There's nothing really going on in the game, and you're not sure what to do. Sometimes you can play a waiting move. Just move a piece and slightly improve its position. And, maybe move a pawn into a area that'll help create an outpost for your knight or one of your other pieces. Put your king in a better defended place, or bring your rook onto a better file or rank. Slight improvements. So a waiting move, just make a move that slightly improves your position. Sometimes it won't even improve anything. You just move a piece and wait to see what your opponent does, and they might start to feel pressure that they have to come up with some kind of attacking move, and they could overextend or make some mistake, that was unexpected. So, something interesting to think about. Sometimes a waiting move, especially, if you're playing a blitz game and your time is ticking, you don't know what to do, maybe a waiting move will help, save you some time on the clock, and your opponent then will be pressured to make a move, and they may, make a mistake. All right, so the final tip for today, number 30, is don't resign too early. So, in this position, let's see, the computer says it's +5 advantage, and you're playing against Bobby Fischer, so it's probably okay to resign. But, if this game was between two even opponents, especially if you can't see exactly how they can win, then go ahead and play to the end. And also, if you're learning, you might want to just play to the very end just to see how your opponent goes about winning or checkmating, just so you can learn from that. So let's see how this game could have progressed. The computer says that after this queen to e7 move, the best thing to do is queen to e3 check, which just gives up the queen for this rook. So let's take a look at that. So queen to e3, rook captures, bishop captures with check, and now the king can just move, because we still have this attack built up here. If the queen moves here, the rook is under attack right now. So now the king just moves up. This bishop is still under attack. Now the computer's saying it would have been best to just go ahead and capture there, because the bishop could pick this pawn off, I guess. But, well, really the bishop can't do that. This bishop can't do anything because there's a threat of mate here, because this bishop is pinning the rook. So, this move is the best move in the position. But now you can either do this, or pick off the bishop. So if the rook captures, now we have check. And, how would the game continue? The rook has to go here, and now you can pick off this bishop, and you're just ahead, let's see, ahead by a pawn and a queen. So, not looking too good, especially if you're playing against Bobby Fischer. All right, so if we go back to where the resignation occurred, what if something else was played? So, let's see. Let's say you just tried to save this rook by moving here. Well, now what? Well, now there is bishop captures with check. The rook is forced to capture, but then the queen just captures, driving you into the corner, and then you can deliver mate here with the queen. So that doesn't work. So now, let's see. Are there any other options? Maybe, well, I don't know. It just doesn't look too good. Can you attack with your bishop? So something like that. Well, that doesn't work because now the queen just captures here. King forced to go into the corner, and then you can sacrifice your queen with that. Rook captures and rook captures. So anyway, you can take a look at that, all the different ways that Fischer's attack could have played out after his opponent resigned here after queen to e7. There's just too much pressure on this pinned rook here. And also this rook is under attack. His rook here is preventing any attacks down here like bishop to e3. The rook can just capture. All right, well, I'll do a quick review of those tips just so you can remember them. So number 16 was play against the moves, not the person. Very important. Number 17, try to understand why you lost a game. You definitely want to do that. Understand why you lost each game and learn from it and try and prevent those mistakes from happening again. Number 18, study videos, lessons, and books. Just regular chess study can definitely help you improve and learn a lot. Number 19, get a chess teacher. Whether you pay for a coach or you just find a higher rated friend, or somebody with a lot more experience that can teach you from everything they've learned in their chess playing history. So definitely worth thinking about. Get a mentor or a teacher, somebody to help you. All right, number 20, play slower games. Slower games are definitely better for you. Too much blitz and bullet, it's just so fast that you'll probably make a lot more mistakes. You won't learn as much. You can just have more time to concentrate, focus on what you're doing when you play slower games. All right, play in tournaments. So that's a good piece of advice. Regular play in tournaments where you really have to focus and take your time. That's a good piece of advice to help improve your chess as well. All right, number 22, build an opening repertoire. So don't spend too much time on the openings at the expense of everything else that you can be learning in chess. But you should have some type of opening repertoire, even if you just pick one move by white. Let's say you start with e4 or d4, and then just figure out what your responses are to each opponent's move. And the same with black. And then, each game, try and go maybe one move deeper into your opening, and try and learn that and remember what the best response is for your next game. All right. Number 23, reduce blunders. So, that, like I said, reducing blunders can be easier said than done. You'll probably never get rid of blunders completely, but if you just reduce the number of blunders you're making, you'll see progress. And you'll be making less mistakes, giving up less material. So all around, less blunders will help you out there. And to try and get rid of your blunders, play slower games, like I said, and ask yourself before you make your move, is this a good move? Am I blundering this piece? Am I leaving my king open to attack? But anyway, reduce those blunders. Number 24 is learn middle game plans. So definitely important. Learn what you should be doing in the middle game, especially if you play a certain opening and you see similar middle games happening. Try and figure out what the best plans are. Where should you be placing your pieces in the middle game for that opening? What should you do with your pawns? Is there an attack on the king side, or do you have to attack the queen side? All right, 25, analyze your mistakes. Definitely want to do that. Figure out, what your mistakes were and what you could have done better. And also, look at your opponent's mistakes and figure out, how you were able to capitalize on those and, how you can use that in the future. All right, so after number 25, which was analyzing your mistakes, number 26 is continually improve and evolve your chess. So, like I said with the openings, just try and improve your opening one move at a time. Slowly learn new chess strategy and end games and try and incorporate them into your games when you're playing. And slowly you'll evolve and improve your chess. Number 27, try to understand the ideas behind your opponent's moves. So don't just have blinders on, focusing on your attack or what you're doing, unless you're sure it's a winning attack. Then of course go ahead and checkmate your opponent. But don't just focus so much on what your moves are that you're neglecting to watch out for your opponent's plans, because they might have a checkmate attack themselves that you have to defend against. So definitely try to understand the ideas behind your opponent's moves. Just after each move, ask yourself, well, why did they move there? Maybe there's a good reason behind it. Maybe they just moved to a square because they weren't sure what they should do. So number 28, always look for weaknesses, both yours and your opponent's. So like I said, before you move, look for king safety, piece safety, pawn safety, and then if you know that you're safe, check and see if there are weaknesses on your opponent's side of the board. Okay, number 29 was play waiting moves. Sometimes there's a quiet position in chess and there's just really not much you can do, and you might have to play a move where it might slowly improve your position, or it might not. You might just have to make a move and wait and see what your opponent does, and they might start to feel pressure that they have to do something, and they could make a mistake. And the final tip for today, for number 30, don't resign too early, because you can't win if you resign, of course, but sometimes, especially if you're beginners and lower rated players out there, I've seen people resign too early, especially if you're playing those blitz games or bullet games. You might be able to play on and win on time, even though you're behind in material. So also, it's a learning experience. You could play a little bit longer and just learn by how your opponent sets up his attack and finishes it, and checkmates you or wins material or whatever. So it's good advice to not resign too early. You never know what you might learn and gain. You might end up even winning a game that you thought you were going to lose. All right, well, please like and subscribe and support the channel if you haven't already. Also, feel free to leave comments, suggestions, any requests for what you would like to see in future videos. And also, if you have any good chess tips that you think would help people improve their chess, things I haven't mentioned in this series of videos, then leave a comment with your own chess tips on ways that you can improve at chess. All right, so this was the second of 3 videos. I'll have 15 more chess tips on how to improve your chess on the video coming up. I don't know if I'll put it out tomorrow or maybe 2 days from now. We'll see, but keep an eye out for that. Thank you for watching, and have a super chess day.